guys had grown apart. What was it like when how did it happen that you actually formally decided, you know what, let's do something else?
Well, I think part of what had been going on was Steve and I were doing other things outside of the group. Like we did a short tour with Chaka and things like that, which may have affected the situation a little bit. But it was still number one commitment was AWB. That was it. That was our thing, you know. But what eventually happened was one day, well, I remember it, one Saturday morning, I got the local paper in Connecticut. I was living in Connecticut by that time. I'd moved out of Manhattan. And the local Stamford papers, Alan Gorrie is leaving the Average White Band to start a solo career. And I thought, oh, okay. That's nice of him to tell me. And I got very angry for a minute. I was going to jump in the car and drive over and see him. And then I just kind of, I started to calm down. And I thought, yeah, this is good. Maybe this is time we should just knock it on the head then, because it's obviously not. It was obviously not happening. And if Alan wants to do that, then fine. Let's forget it. And I think I spoke to Roger after that, and Steve and Molly, and we just went our merry way. And then for the next 2 or 3 months, I sat at home and watched soap operas and wondered, what am I going to do now? Because it was
more time to listen to frogs.
Yeah, oh, it was the first time in my life since age 15 that I wasn't in a band all of a sudden. I'd always been in a band. So what was I going to do now? And it took me a long time to kind of come to terms with that. And I just decided to keep on writing songs, and I moved to LA and did that until I got the call, and did a couple of things outside of that. David Sanborn called me up a couple of years later, around about 86 or 85 or 86, and said, you want to come to New York and do some shows, and we'll do a couple of songs in the show, and we're going to do a live record. I was like, great, yeah, okay. And went and did that. We did, I wound up coming on in the middle of the show. We did Pittsburgh and Cleveland and places like that. Come on and doing 2 songs. It was like a weird out-of-body experience for me, because I'd never done that before. It was like you're just getting warmed up and you got to leave again. Yeah. But we got a nice record out of that live version of Love and Happiness. That was fun to do, and I did a little bit of producing during that time, and then 87 I got the call from Paul McCartney's manager. You want to come and get involved in this? And I spent the next 6 years doing that.
Yeah, I got to jump right in there because, this is well before the internet and those kinds of things. So it was a lot more challenging to keep up with, guys from bands, what they were doing.
Yeah.
And so in your case, I didn't know, what was Hamish Stuart doing? Where is he? And I remember seeing Paul McCartney perform somewhere, and I'm like, that's Hamish. Wow, he's in Paul McCartney's band now. I'm like, and I'm telling, whoever's around, hey, that's from AWB, and that was great to see you there. And I was always wondering how you guys came together.
Well, I was kind of, when it finished and I was suddenly not in a band, I decided to stay not in a band, and I'd kind of had enough of the road for a while, and my son had just been born, my family was really young, and I thought, okay, it's the time to not be on the road, and that's what happened. So the only live thing I did between 82 and 87 was the thing with David Sanborn. It was like 5 or 6 shows, and that was it. Apart from that, I spent the time writing songs. And then when the Paul thing came up, I realized how much I missed performing, and it got me back into it again.
So what is he really like, and what was it like performing with him, and what's like a memory that you'll cherish from working with Paul McCartney?
It was great. It was I just arrived at his studio, and I was like, just, hey, come on and let's have a cup of tea and a sandwich, and let's have a jam. Okay. And we had a drummer, and Nicky Hopkins was playing piano, and we jammed a little song together, and that was the beginning of things. And immediately it was just great to sing with, because he's a great singer, you know. And we had a lot of fun. He had a bunch of songs that were almost completed, and things that he'd been working on with other people. And slowly but surely we got that band together and made the record Flowers in the Dirt. There were a lot of background vocals and a lot of singing together, and it was great. And then going on the road, playing the Maracanã in Rio to 250,000 people. And he'd never been to South America before, so it was complete insanity, total Beatlemania, an experience of a whole other level of crazy.
Was it kind of nice in a way, being not being the center of attention, and so while he's getting all that craziness, you can kind of do more of your own thing and look at it from a distance?
Yeah, it was great being a part of it, and I cut my teeth on quite a lot of the songs that we wound up playing. You know, there were songs that some of the first things I learned on guitar, things like "Can't Buy Me Love" and stuff like that. You know, things that I'd played in youth clubs when I was a kid. You know, so it was great to do all that with one of the originators and be part of that thing, and do them right. You know, try and do them justice. And I got to play a lot of bass as well, because it enabled Paul to play piano and Let It Be and Lady Madonna and all those kind of things, and then play guitar. He loved to play guitar, so it freed me up to. I played bass like 50% of the show. It allowed me to wear all my hats.
Was he very, very aware of AWB's catalog? Was he a fan at all?
Sorry?
Was Paul very aware of AWB's legacy and song catalog? Was he a fan at all?
Some of it, and he was very aware of it. And him and Linda had been at that Eric Clapton gig where we were launched on the it was like there's an audience full of the great and the near great, so everybody knew about us, and Paul wanted some of the R&B thing as well. He was a huge fan of R&B, so it was nice to have that in his band, I think. And he encouraged that too.
So you went on after that to work with a lot of big names. Tell me some of those highlights and how you came to work with some of the other folks.
Well, Aretha was that was through Arif. He just called me in to do something, and that was great. And I'd met her a few times, and of course we were huge fans. And the fact that she was on Atlantic, we were kind of there, So that was great. Working with Chaka, making those records with Chaka was so much fun. It was just playing music and having fun, being involved in putting the tracks together, and being allowed sort of creative reign inside of things was really great.
Did you get to spend much time with her actually in the studio?
Oh yeah. With 3 albums with Chaka. It was.
What was she like to work with?
Great. A breeze. She loved being around the guys, the players, because she was she was a frustrated drummer, you know. She was a musician anyway, you know, and she had huge admiration for like Mike Brecker and Anthony and Steve, and so she liked to be in the thick of it, which she'd always been with Rufus. You know, remember like when we got to know that group, they'd invite us. You know, oh, we're cutting the new album down at the record plant. Come down and hang. You know, open invitation. So we got to know each other before we actually worked together. So that was a plus. But great to work with. Really easy. You know, and Aretha being there as well was perfect.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's probably times where she must have unleashed those notes like only she can do, where in the studio you would probably just be like, wow.
Yeah, okay, that's love. Yeah, more. And then she'd come up with singing harmony with herself, doing those background vocal parts. It's just stunning sometimes.
Yeah.
Amazing, real incredible rhythmic things and with outrageous little bits of harmony as well. It's great. A super voice.
Oh, incredible.
Really, really unique. Yeah, I remember the first time I ever heard her. Exact time and place. We were on our first tour of Europe, and we checked into this hotel in Rotterdam, and I got into the hotel and I put the radio on, and Tell Me Something Good was playing. And I'd never heard it before. It had just come out, and I was like, who's this? This is, wow, this is like, it's like the first time I heard Aretha. It was like, this voice is unique. You know, just great. Super talent.
So in 1989, Alan decided to get AWB going again. And, you know, was there any dialogue with you or Steve or the other guys? How did that happen, and how did you feel about him starting that up again?
Well, I'd heard that there was something happening, and well, at that point I hadn't been included, but I think Alan and I had kind of fallen out by then anyway, and so I called him up, and we were kind of like two boxers that nobody wants to throw the first punch, you know. So nothing. We kind of talked, and basically didn't say anything. All I said were really that I didn't want to go on the road at that point, and it just I didn't want to do it basically anyway. I was when it was, for me, when it was over, it was over. It stopped because it wasn't very good anymore. You know, we'd lost a lot of what we had, and I didn't think at that point there was enough distance and enough. I just wasn't ready to do it again, and so I didn't. And that was my decision. I wanted to do other things like the working with David Sanborn, and I've had great opportunities to work, like working with Quincy Jones and various other people that probably I wouldn't have been able to do if I'd still been concentrating on the group, working with Paul, working with Ringo, working with Mick Taylor, working, you know, just lots of other things. I wanted to move on, you know. It still would be great to do it again sometime. And people have been trying to get us to do it recently, but I think Alan's very happy doing what he's, with the lineup that he's got now and doing what he's doing. So I don't see it happening.
I saw a clip on YouTube recently, and I think it was more recent, but it had all you guys in it. You were wearing a kilt.
Oh yeah, that was the Atlantic 40th anniversary at Madison Square Garden. And that was the last time all six of us played together. That was 87.
Oh, is that long ago?
Yeah, the band had, the new band had been going for a little while at that point. Maybe a year, I think, maybe 2 years. and we got together to do that. And that was it. That was the last time, and it was kind of weird, but it's something we had to do.
Yeah.
We had to honor Atlantic and Amit and Arif and Wexler, and it had to be done.
There was a very impressive comprehensive box set that came out of all of AWB's works about a year ago. I think it's like 19 CDs or something. Did you have any involvement in that at all? Did anyone reach out to
Is
you?
that all the pieces, I think it's called?
Yeah.
The box, the white box. Yeah. Just sleeve notes and things. I spoke to the guy who was writing all the sleeve notes, and we just about how things were put together and how things happened. Just so everybody's take on it was there.
Oh, great.
It was mainly myself and Alan, with quotes from Molly and Onnie and Roger and Steve.
Very good. You know, the name of this show is Truth and Rhythm, so I like to ask guests, Hamish, you know, for you, what is it in the music you do that makes it speak to you, speak truth to you? How do you keep it honest in what you create?
When I'm writing, I just try to keep it as I write all the time, and I write to please myself, which I've always done, which we always did as a group. That's what the Average White Band did. We to please each other. Now I'm pleasing just myself, and it's just trying to keep it as real and as truthful as possible, and try to improve my songwriting, which I think is coming along. I think the things that I've written in the last 2 years are probably the best things I've ever written. There's a handful of songs that are really strong that I'm just beginning to work on putting together just now. And there's some of the stuff that's on the new 360 record. It's from that batch, a batch of about 20 songs, really solid. There's a great quote from Bill Evans. Something, I think it's part of the liner notes on the piano vocal record that they did in 1975. Bill Evans and Tony Bennett, and Tony Bennett is saying that the things that Bill Evans said to him was, there's only two things that are important: truth and beauty. And I think that kind of says it right there. It's trying to get something beautiful and in whatever way it's beautiful, if it's a beautiful piece of funk or whatever, you know. But truth and beauty, it's a good way to good target. Certainly truth anyway. I always feel better if I've been truthful in interviews and things like that.
Well, I think that's one of the most common things that undermine a lot of artists, is they kind of stop being totally truthful, and they, give in to, a label wanting them to be something that they're not, and that kind of thing. So,
well, we fought against that with Aristan. we kind of lost the battle. It was like 50-50. I think it was a draw, that one. We broke up, and yeah, whatever. But yeah, you definitely have to just keep trying to do the best work you can, I think.
So let's talk more about the new record, 360 Band. How did you guys come back together, you and Steve and Molly? And how did you come up with the name of the group? And then we'll talk about a few of the cuts.
Well, it was Steve was being honored by not the Drummers Hall of Fame, but it was something similar anyway, where he puts his hands in cement and they put it up on the wall, the Guitar Center Wall of Fame, and Questlove was presenting him with the plaque and all that kind of stuff. So Steve called up and he tried to get everybody from AWB to come out and play in LA with him on his night. Alan and Onnie had a gig. Roger couldn't make it for health reasons, so it was just me and Molly. And Will Lee came, and Larry Williams came and played alto and piano. Ben Montench from Tom Petty's band, and a great Israeli guitar player called Oz Noy, jazz funk player.
He's amazing.
He's great, and he was great on the gig because he really reined in all his chops, and he just came to play for Steve, and he was great to play with on the front of, from being another guitar player. You know, you find somewhere else to go, you complement each other. It's that counterpoint thing, the two guitars that we always had in whatever we did together. And we did half a dozen songs that Steve was instrumental in from our old catalogue. And we did a half an hour, and we came off, and, well, we've got to do this again. So it took us a year to put it together when we all had a window. And I put Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in London. We got a couple of nights there, and we put a show in Scotland. And just before, about a few weeks before we were supposed to do it, this guy from the studio, Paul Madden, came to me and said, do you guys want to come in the studio and make a record? And we'll just put it out on vinyl, and then you can go and do whatever you want with it. I said, okay, great, yeah. So we rehearsed in the studio, and when we finished the rehearsals for the shows, which we did the whole of Soul Searching, that was the show, from beginning to end, in, you know, as it is on the album. That was the way we were going to do the show. So we did that, and then we cut 9 tracks in 4 or 5 days, and then I slowly finished up the vocals, and Molly did the whatever horn overdubs needed doing, and we finished up and mixed, and that was it. We punted around the songs that we had. Steve brought one, Molly brought one, the rest all came. I had a couple of covers, an old Ray Charles tune that I've been doing for years called, that was written by Louis Armstrong's missus. It's called Just for a Thrill.
Yep.
It's on a Ray Charles album from like about 1956. Great song. So we did that. I knew Steve would know how to play that because he loved Ray and he played with him a few times. So he was right. It fit what we were doing. And the rest of the songs were mine that I'd already had, some couple of new ones and some that I'd already been playing. That comprised the record.
So, you know, in hearing the record, enjoyed it immensely. What really jumps out to me is just the overall musicianship is tremendous throughout it all. I mean, it's just you can't not know you're hearing, you know, really pros and skilled musicians. It's got a very big sound with horns, and the keyboards are great. Just stellar playing throughout, and it sounds good.
Thank you. Yeah, the guys that I pulled in from here, from London, are guys that I've worked with over the years, and they're all really terrific players, and I trust them totally, and they understand what I'm doing, and they're huge. Steve, the bass player, was just so jazzed to get to play with Steve Ferrone. You know, he played some of the best I've ever heard him play, and it was great, and it just worked. They're listeners, you know. They complement each other. There's lots of little conversations taking place. And it was a fun record to do, and we did it the old-fashioned way. As I say, when we cut the first track, Steve and I sat, listened to the playback, and this is just like the old days. This is great. This is going to be really good, and we were pleased. Everybody's pleased with the way it turned out. Really happy with the way the record sounds, and as you say, the playing is stellar throughout. The guys all played wonderfully, you know, and Molly's sound now is so, his playing's matured so much in his sound as well as just his general, his playing. And Steve's groove, the pocket is so deep. It's beyond, it's just so great to play with him again, and to get to play a couple of tunes on bass with him as well. I really hoped that I could do that.
One of those tunes is Put Your Hands to the Sky, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's got a very nice, slow kind of funk vibe to it. And, you know, it's definitely harkens back, I think, to the Schoolboy Crush I brought up at the outset.
Yeah, it does have a flavor of that, definitely. And as soon as I heard that, well, Steve and I both, that Molly brought that in, and Steve and I, they had 2 songs, and Molly said, "What about that one?" He said, "No." We both went, "No, that one." That's the one, because it had that thing. It was a great groove, and I love the way it happens on the record. There's no gap after the song, the previous song. It's just like right into it. The tempo change is lovely. Rather than have a gap, it's great. Oh, well, where are we going now?
Starts off with the Muhammad Ali tribute.
Yeah.
And I like the way too, like on that opening track, and later on the one that you mentioned at the outset, which harkens back to the Pick Up the Pieces story. It's hip, too hip, yeah. Those both, you took enough time to really fully develop and flesh them out. One's close to 7 minutes, one's over 7 minutes.
Yeah.
I love when bands do that, you know, and get deep into something.
Well, the original Mighty Fall was about 4 minutes. I wrote it with a friend of mine, and it was on his record, a guitar player called Richard Niles, an American arranger who lived in London here for a long time. We wrote that song, and it was on an album of his. And about 6 months later, I thought, I didn't write enough. Ali's story is much bigger, and obviously you can't tell the whole story. So I wrote these other 2 verses that I tagged on as part 2, and kind of cut down a lot of the chords and things, and it became a 7-minute song just because it had to tell more of a story, you know. And the same thing with the other song. I'd got to the kind of middle of it, too hip, and I realized that I had to go somewhere else with it. I had to bring it back to the beginning, and have the last verse about how Robbie and I met, and when we were kids, and so on, and how great he was back then. So it's like the story of AWB and Robbie and his death, and then kind of back to kind of finish on a positive note, and then the groove going out. We carry on, you know.
Yeah, that song comes off almost like a suite, you know, in the way it's structured, and get great sax throughout.
Yeah, Molly was great on that.
Really good keys also.
Yeah, Jim Watson played beautifully on that one. He played great piano, a real Herbie Hancock style.
Yeah, I eat that stuff up.
He's a great player, Jim. And Ross Stanley, the guy. They kind of traded off. When they come and do my gig, sometimes they'll do one on Hammond and one on Fender Rhodes, and they'll kind of, in between songs, where are you going? Where are you going? And they swap over. You know, it's like, no, I want to play Hammond on that. You know, so there's always a great thing going on there. They're both fantastic players.
Nice. Are you guys planning to tour much? Do you think you might come to my neck of the woods anytime?
I hope so. Next year. Yeah. Next year. We hope to do some stuff here, and hope to do some stuff in the States next year. But this year is kind of difficult. Most of the year, Steve's out with Tom Petty, so we can't do that. So I'm doing some things with Molly here, and some things on my own with my band, and I've got a record to produce come the turn of the year. So it'll probably be springtime or into the summer. That's what we're actually looking at the moment.
Well, you know what? The 360 band record ought to be in everyone's hands by then. They'll be familiar with it. That could be a good time.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe it'll have kind of crept out there a little more by then. We get a proper American release, I think, is the next phase. It's now that the record came out here 18th of August, so it's everywhere now here. And we've been getting some good reviews, really nice reviews, and good press on it here. So we have to move on now. But it's available on Spotify and Amazon and things like that. So hopefully if enough people start to learn about it, they'll start to find it out there, and maybe it'll creep in there before we actually get out and play some.
Well, we'll definitely help get the word out through here and also on the website. I wanted to mention also on this record, kind of a carryover from what we're talking about with some of the later AWB band albums, and that's the varied rhythmic qualities of the record. There's several in a row, I think, from Loose Change and Love and Learn and Cherry Blossom Time. It's like a bit of a reggae flavor. It's a bit of Latin elements. You got some jazzy bossa nova kind of stuff going on through those cuts.
Well, it's something in the last 10 or 15 years, maybe the last 20 years, my interest personally in Brazilian music has increased, and I've learned a lot more about it and the harmony in Brazilian music. And I've tried to kind of fuse that with R&B. So it's more of a kind of R&B Brazilian kind of thing. That's what I'm trying to achieve personally. But Steve was always great at playing Brazilian things and Latin things, so it was perfect for him. Like Love and Learn was perfect for him. That slightly kind of Latin thing. So that's where I'm trying to go. I'm trying to kind of fuse the funk with Brazilian harmony and melody, really. And that's what I'm trying to do anyway. So maybe you're hearing those things. Maybe I'm achieving it in some way, shape, or form. That's good.
Absolutely. Always interesting to hear those elements kind of coming together in different ways. Yeah. And then you mentioned the record closes with the cover song "Just for a Thrill," and that's very kind of bluesy standard kind of flavor to it. Nice closer. I would say for anyone who's an AWB fan, you've got a couple of cuts that rekindle the funk and Too Hip, and the other one that we talked about. I haven't got all the titles memorized yet. Put Your Hands to the Sky. You got some mid-tempo stuff like Mighty Fall, and Loose Change. You got old school ballads like Some Other Time.
Yeah.
So I think you got a bit of everything on there and some new stuff too. So I think they'll definitely enjoy it.
Well, hopefully I think the material's all pretty solid. So hopefully, and the playing is so good, so stellar, as you said. I think there's a lot of quality there. So hopefully it's got a long shelf life.
Yeah, the playing is impeccable. I mean, we moved too far away in a lot of ways from that kind of playing.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Like Some Other Time was I became acquainted with that song through the Tony Bennett, Bill Evans piano vocal record, and I loved the song immediately, and I tried to learn what the harmony that Bill Evans was playing and kind of adapted it to the guitar, and I thought, how can I make this work in a way that we can play it? And there's a Donny Hathaway tune called "Sack Full of Dreams" that's on I think it's a live album called In Performance, which I've always loved, and the groove is taken from that. I thought, how can I just like marry these two things together? Then it makes sense to what it makes sense with the other music that we're going to play, and it's also an homage to Donny always. He's an amazing talent, and still, to this day, is like.
So chills and shiver in the spine kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, and his daughter, Layla, is stunning. She's amazing. Talent and family.
I'm sorry.
The talent in that family. She sounds like a female version of him as well. The tonality it's just great, wonderful.
What's your take on today's music? We're talking about how great the playing is on this new record of yours, 360 Band. What about what's coming out today? Do you still have faith in what you're hearing out there? What do you think?
I think in the pop music scene, it's got very, very bland, and R&B seems to have become the pop music of the day now, and I miss some of the tradition. There don't seem to be as many great new singers around, and I think there's an awful lot of people. A lot of singers seem to be ignoring the melody now and embellishing things so much that the tune the melody gets lost, and I kind of miss that. And when there's somebody kind of retro comes along, it's kind of like a breath of fresh air to me. I don't actually listen to a lot of new music. I spend my time more kind of listening to older music, going back to stuff that I really love, like Marvin and Donny Hathaway and people like that. And that's kind of the well that I go back to. And I just like to kind of forge ahead and try and create whatever new music I can.
And of course, AWB's grooves have been sampled quite a bit in hip hop and rap music. How do you feel about that?
It's great. It's the whole sampling thing's very weird because some things it works great, and other times people have sent me things where I can't even hear the sample anymore because they've just used it as their basic. But some things are really interesting. Other things not. It's just.
It still takes creativity to do it right.
Oh, absolutely. When I first got wind of what was happening, and met some people that were doing it, I got it. And some of the things they were doing was very creative. Yeah. It's great mixing up samples from different samples and creating a groove from them is an interesting way to go.
One thing I neglected to mention before we get away from the 360 Band is your voice and vocals sound great still. And, do you do anything to kind of keep that instrument in good shape?
I just try and sing as often as I can. It's funny, there's been a couple of reviews recently that have been commenting on. Somebody said the voice sounds a bit weathered now.
They love saying that.
and there've been a couple of less than complimentary things. Like there was one review stated that this would be a great record except for the vocals. I thought, hang on, I can't be losing it. I'll know when it's bad. I'll stop. And thanks for your compliment. I've lost some of the high end. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, you can't quite make those high notes on a specific song." But yeah, that was 40 years ago. I recorded that song.
Hey, you know what? You've held on to it a lot better than Robert Plant. I'll tell you that.
I wish I could get a little more of the high end that I did have, and I'm working on trying to redevelop that, because I think it still can be dredged out. But I've got a lot of work to do, and I've just kind of started a program this last couple of weeks. I had a long run of a few gigs, and I was a little tired after it, so I rested up for a couple of weeks. And last week I started working, building up again, and it's going to take some hard work, but I think I can get a little bit more of that back. But I'm glad that you think it's still there.
Hey, well, the proof in the pudding is really if you can still really do the high parts smoothly for, like Schoolboy Crush, or the hey, wait a minute stuff. And
well, I still do Cloudy in the same key. I did change the key for a while, and it was like
that one too. Yeah,
I've got to sing it in the original key. That's it, and it's okay. I can still make it. So
well, a lot of that stuff is kind of falsetto, but I don't know if I would really call it falsetto. How do you categorize it?
It kind of drifts between chest and falsetto, and some of it's not a true falsetto. I don't know how I would describe it, actually. I have to get somebody with more knowledge than I to figure that one out. I just
it's Hamish. That's what it is.
do what I can, and that's what comes out.
Well, I still love it. So.
It sounds like me, yeah.
I'm just very glad, and so many viewers and listeners are too, that you're still out there doing what you do, and keep on doing it. You've got an audience out there. Don't ever think that you don't.
Well, I'll keep doing it until I fall over.
That's why I've had people come on and say musicians don't retire; they go until they leave this earth.
Yeah. Well, unless vocally it becomes, it starts to get too if the vibrato starts to get uncontrollable, and I start to lose my sense of pitch, then I'll definitely stop, because I think that's the clue. That's the cue. When it's not doing what you want it to do, then you got to stop.
Yeah, well, that's when you go to, half-hour versions of Pick Up the Pieces and Going Home and all those tracks.
What, again?
Full circle.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
360. Yeah. Or is it just three guys over 60?
So, Hamish, what's the best way for fans to keep in touch with what's going on with you and follow you and all that good stuff?
There is, as far as 360 is concerned, there is a Facebook, an official 360 band official page, Facebook page, and that's where everything gets posted. I have a website, but it's in the middle of transition right now, so I wouldn't use that at all. So the 360 one is the best one at the moment, and I'm just trying to get up to speed on Twitter as well. But it's an alien life form for me.
Well, you got out of your comfort zone to do this, so you never know.
Hey, yeah, that's it. I managed to get this together. Well, I did get some help, but this is great. Now that it's up and running, I can do this whenever I like.
Terrific.
Needed.
Was there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Nothing really that I can think of off the top of my head. I tend to come up with my thoughts after the fact. Things that I would like to have said, but I just. Thanks for getting in touch, and I hope that in some way this has been enlightening in some way. I'm really excited about this new record and really pleased that it's starting to get out there. And I enjoyed so much actually playing with Steve and Molly again. It's really great. And the live shows that we've done have been great as well. So we look forward to doing more of it in the new year. And there'll be Chauncey Gardner. There'll be growth in the spring. There will be growth in the spring.
All right, well, just hang in there for a minute while I close this up for us, okay? So with that, it's time to wrap up this edition of Truth and Rhythm. A huge thanks to my special guest, legendary former AWB member and current 360 band member and Superstar Sessions ace, Hamish Stuart. Thank you so much again. Thanks for your generosity of sharing time and your amazing experiences. We really appreciate it. It's been an honor. Also, sincere thank you to our viewers and listeners. Be sure to look out for upcoming Truth and Rhythm episodes and catch up with previous installments at funkandstuff.net and on YouTube, iTunes, and other leading podcast providers. If you're a music fan wanting to see a particular artist on this show, or you're an artist who wants to be on the show, drop me an email at scottg@funkandstuff.net, and we'll see if we can't get that done for you. With that, until next time, and on behalf of Hamish Stuart, this is Scott Goldfine saying, keep on vibrating to the rhythm of the one.
Yeah.